Senator Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Secretary, thank you very much for being here. I know we all look forward to working with you to address this horrendous crisis. Mr. Secretary, as you well know, the American people are outraged that a small number of Wall Street executives, through their greed, their recklessness, and likely illegal behavior, have plunged us into the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression. We all know that millions of Americans have lost their jobs, their savings, their homes, their pensions, their health insurance, while the CEOs of the largest financial institutions in this country that caused this crisis are still holding on to their jobs. Millions of Americans lost their jobs. These guys who caused the crisis still have their jobs, while over a period of years they made out like bandits. Now, I don't have a lot of time, so I'd like you to, if you could, just give me a yes or no answer to the following questions. In 2006 and 2007, Lloyd Blankfein, the CEO of Goldman Sachs, was the highest paid executive on Wall Street, making over $125 million in total compensation. Due to its risky investments, Goldman Sachs now has over $168 billion in total outstanding debt. It's laid off over 10% of its workforce. Late last year, the financial situation at Goldman was so dire that the taxpayers of this country provided Goldman Sachs with a $10 billion bailout. Very simple question that I think the Americans people want to know. Yes or no, should Mr. Blankfein be fired from his job and new leadership be brought in?
Senator, that's a judgment his board of directors have to make. I want to say one thing which is very important. Everything we do going forward has to be judged against the impact we're going to have on the American people and the prospects for recovery. And every dollar we spend has to be measured against the benefits we bring in terms of...
Mr. Secretary, you're not answering my question. You have a person who made hundreds of millions for himself as he led his institution and helped cause a great financial crisis. We have put, as taxpayers, $10 billion to bail him out, and we have no say about whether or not he should stay on the job?
No, I didn't say that. I think there will be circumstances, as there have been already, where the government intervention will have to come with very tough conditions, including changes in management leadership of institutions. And where we believe that makes sense, we will do that.
I just asked you, do you believe that is the case with Goldman Sachs?
In this case, I'm not going to change my answer, but I want to just say one thing. I feel deeply offended by the judgments you've seen these boards of directors make. I think they've made our task much harder going forward.
But we are not going to fire the leadership, and we're going to keep these same guys who caused this crisis in power and who made huge sums of money.
Where we think that is the most effective strategy for our country, we will do that.
All right. I have a strong disagreement. I think the American people, if they're going to pour hundreds of billions of dollars into these institutions, want a new slate of leadership so that we can work with them to move us in a new direction. Second question. Mr. Bunning raised the issue of the Fed. I'll take it in a different direction. We all talk about the $700 billion in TARP funding that the taxpayers have put up. We don't talk too much about the $2.3 trillion of Fed loans that went out. Now, every member of this committee has engaged in huge debates on the floor of the Senate or the House over $10 million here, $50 million there. Should it go here? Should it go there? We put $2.3 trillion at risk from the Fed. I have no idea, nor I believe does anybody else here know where one nickel of that money went, who got it, what the terms are, what's being repaid. Will you make public, or work with Mr. Bernanke, to make public so that all of us will know who received this $2.3 trillion?
Chairman Bernanke testified publicly yesterday that he's going to bring a new level of disclosure and transparency to the actions of the Fed. He believes in that. I think it's important to do. Happy to work with him on how best to do that. Happy to come testify with him together to try to make sure that on all these programs we're providing a level of transparency.
You didn't answer the question. Will $2.3 trillion went out? Now, how do I get some of it? How do the people in Vermont get online to get some of the money? They're all very curious. Who got that money?
Senator, as I said, the chairman of the Federal Reserve said yesterday that he's going to bring a new level of disclosure to those basic programs so that you'll be able to see how they're being designed and used with a greater level of detail than is apparent today.
Will we know who received the money?
You will know what loans were made, with what programs against, what type of assets, with what rationale, with what ultimate risk, but that's a judgment he has to make.
Last question. I have talked to some economists who believe that what happened on Wall Street was not just reckless and irresponsible, that perhaps, we don't know it, at the highest level there may have been fraud, that these guys understood that they were pushing worthless paper. What will, and I know you've been on the job all of 2 weeks, so, but what is your intention in terms of undertaking a detailed investigation to possible fraud and taking criminal actions against the people who caused this crisis?
My intention, Senator, is to work very closely with Mary Shapiro. This is her responsibility, the SEC's broad responsibility, and we need to make sure they have not just the resources, but the quality of talent and people necessary to bring a much more forcible, credible enforcement mechanism. And I think it's very important to do so, and I know she's committed to it too.
Thank you.